Good morning. Carl, most of you are academics. You should know that when the teacher stands at the front, you're meant to be silent. Good morning, everybody. And welcome to today's workshop then. So this morning's workshop for Transforming Construction Network Plus. We'll start with a brief introduction of myself. So my name is Mark Wray. I work for the Knowledge Transfer Network Limited, and I'm pleased to be here today working with our the team delivering the Network Plus call. So our colleagues from UK Research and Innovation, UCL, Imperial College, and not with us actually in person today, but here in spirit and hopefully online, the Warwick Manufacturing Group. So I'll just run through some notes of housekeeping. So for this morning, so that was me. In terms of communications and so forth, if you are an avid fan of Twitter and want to issue any tweets about today, then the specific hashtag we're using for this particular call is the one there in the bottom right-hand corner. So hashtag TCN+. And if you're thinking about just doing something more general related to the industrial strategy, then that's our hashtag industrial strategy, all one word. So now to the points of housekeeping. In terms of the cloakroom and the toilets and so forth, I assume some of you have probably found that today. You're certainly probably directed there when you came in. So those are just immediately across this foyer, down the stairs into the lower basement, and there is a cloakroom and toilets. Those are our nearest ones for our use today. In terms of fire alarms and so forth, fire alarms are tested here on a Wednesday, so we're not expecting any today. So if we do hear a prolonged alarm going off, then that does mean that we are to leave the building. So we leave our possessions here, form an orderly queue and proceed again across the foyer, out the front door. There was some speculation on the front desk as to exactly where we stand, whether it's in the car park here or immediately on the roadside, the other side of the trees. But I think if we just amass where everybody else is, then I'm sure there'll be someone there before long to escort us to where the actual muster point is. It says on the form that it's outside House 11, but I don't know if anybody knows where House 11 is. I certainly don't, so I think we'll just follow the masses. In terms of Wi-Fi and communications, for those of you who haven't found it yet already, there is a free-to-use Wi-Fi service here. It is a public service, so use at your peril, but it is with the Royal College of Physicians one, so it's RCP, Wi-Fi, and then you just click onto the browser and follow the link through to register your details on that public network. In terms of telephone calls and so forth, if you do need to make any of those, obviously just common manners to take those calls outside. Again, they discourage telephone calls in the foyer here, so they would prefer you to go and outside to take telephone calls. If you also need a break for your nicotine fix, be that through smoking or through vaping, they do not permit that on the premises at all. So you will have to go out into the public street if you wish to do that sort of thing. So that's it, I think, for all of the housekeeping keeping notes. So in terms of our agenda today and the things you have to look forward to, we're going to start with a presentation about what is the actual industrial strategy, how the challenge funds work, and specifically what the challenge fund for transforming construction is looking to address. So that presentation will be from Simon Hart from Innovate UK part of UKRI, and from Adam Luqmani. I should have asked you how you presented your name. I hope that's correct. From ESRC, we'll be giving a presentation on the industrial strategy. And then we'll hand over then to Professor Jacqueline Glass from UCL, and she'll be actually giving the detailed presentation on this Network Plus call. We're then going to take a break at that point, so we'll have a generous break for refreshments. And at that point, any questions that you have, if you can start to formulate those in your mind on what you've seen so far in the morning, you can either write those onto a series of post-it notes, and where we had coffee this morning, you can put those onto a series of clipboards, and we'll collate those. For those who are joining us online as well, you can post your questions at that point, and we'll again collate those and put them into groups so you can put your questions there. And we've got a set of roving mics. We've got a mic here at the front and a mic at the back. We'll also take questions from the floor. So the panel will reconvene. So Jacqueline, Simon and Adam will reconvene, and we'll be happy to take your questions. And we've got a generous amount of time for you to ask questions if you wish to in that forum, or if you want to do it anonymous, like I say, use the post-it notes upstairs. Following that, we'll then have move into the lunch break. So again, there's the opportunity, obviously, for informal discussions with our presenters. And then when we reconvene after lunch, we'll then have a session, a small panel session with Jacqueline and also with Professor Jennifer White from Imperial College, who are our investigator and co-investigator for this call. And again, they'll give a series of short presentations about the sort of projects they're expecting to see come forward, what will make a good application, and again you'll have the opportunity to comment from the floor and also to ask further questions at that point about the application process and what makes a good application. And then to finish, we're then going to have a series of informal areas where we'll have sort of a round table opportunity where you can either have a one-to-one discussion with one of the principal presenters that you'll see today, or you can also have a sort of a syndicate of things if there are some of you who wish to collaborate. Again, you can have that one-to-one time, and we'll stay here up until we can stay here if you need to, up until 5 o'clock, at which point we will then have to sprint for our train to go to Manchester. But you'll be able to have that opportunity again to have a further detailed discussion should you wish. So plenty of opportunity to engage with our presenters for today. So without further ado, I'll now hand you over then to Adam, who will start his presentation on the Industrial Strategy Fund. It's the downward arrow to move on. Okay,
thank you. Thanks, everyone. So I'm Adam Luqmani. I work at ESRC, which is the Economic and Social Research Council. We are helping to administer the call, essentially, and administer the Network Plus aspect of the Transforming Construction Challenge, which I'm going to try and unpack a little bit what that all means in this. So what is it, and what are these challenge funds that we speak of? So the industrial strategy, it's the government's range of policies that is trying to address this kind of almost very challenging problem of productivity. If you look at the last 10 years of UK productivity, it's essentially flatlined. Since the credit crunch, since the crash, UK productivity has flatlined. And that is in comparison to our other global competitors, we are behind the curve. And the UK government takes it very seriously that this is something that we need to address through innovation and other means to increase productivity, which then will have other effects like wage growth, and we all want that. So the white paper was launched on the 27th of November 2018, but actually there's been a lot of work going into the industrial strategy over the last couple of years, and these are the kind of big headline things that it's trying to do. So strengthen the UK's position post-Brexit, long-standing productivity gap that I just spoke about, so we're trying to address that and improve productivity in the UK. Also, there's a kind of interesting difference between almost the kind of the haves and the have-nots in companies. You've got the 10% of companies that are performing exceptionally well, in fact some of the best in the G7, and then the 90% of companies that are below the curve in productivity, and the UK has this kind of very rich-poor divide in its company productivity levels. So that's something that we also need to address. And again, that's not just in terms of specific companies, but also there's a regional aspect to that. The London and greater area has this very big kind of almost magnetic draw in high productivity, but then the rest of the UK is kind of left behind. So there are many aspects of the industrial strategy talking about investing in specific places to try and address that balance. And that's why you'll hear a lot about investing in specific places and the place agenda, as it's called. So that's the industrial strategy, which is the overarching piece of policy under which the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund sits. Within the industrial strategy, they've set out 5 foundations, so ideas, people, infrastructure, the business environment, and places. And then there's 4 grand challenges. That's AI and data economy, clean growth, the future of mobility, and the aging society. These are the big pillars on which the UK is a strong player already, and the government feels that these are the areas that we need to push in order to get that productivity puzzle solved. So that's the very broad overview. The Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund is a pot of money for R&D to address these challenges. That it's not just going to be solved by research and development, which is why the industrial strategy has other aspects to it as well. But the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund is about the R&D aspect, which is what we're here for. So it's about research and business working together, and they have to be addressing shared problems. It's tackling this productivity puzzle and in those domains that I spoke about. It's an opportunity to promote growth and productivity if addressed, and it's focusing on these areas of strength. And it's funded by UKRI, so I'm from the Economic and Social Research Council, which is one of many parts of UKRI, which includes EPSRC, Innovate UK, BBSRC, Medical Research Council, and many others. All of those have a contribution to make to this cross-disciplinary, wide-reaching area, but this is our patch right now in the Network Plus. We're looking at ESRC's contribution to helping this Network Plus. And it spans from basic applied research down to solving real-world problems, but the emphasis is clearly on getting things into the real world, solving that problem, not too much of the pie in the sky and blue skies thinking, but actually applying things into the real world. And it's big, 7 billion over 5 years. And this is the kind of breakdown. This is the autumn budget, 2018. So, this is serious money, and, for R&D. And that is the money that the UKRI budget will be paying out. There's also then, on top of that, expected money from industry paying into it to support it as well. So what's happened so far? So wave one, as we call it, that was the first couple of challenges that came out. These were the big research calls and activities, or umbrella calls, under which there were many different activities. So we have something around creative clusters, driverless cars, the Faraday Battery Challenge, leading edge healthcare, robotics for a safer world, manufacturing of future materials. So these are kind of thinking back to those 4 grand challenge areas. You can start to see how these are sort of starting to fit into those different categories. Some of them span multiple ones. And you can read much more about these on the government's website. So if you just type in Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund, these are all laid out in good language and straightforward. There's also calls associated with them. The wave 1 calls have all finished, but we're now in the middle of the wave 2 calls, which came out last year, and one of which is transforming construction, which is what we're in. But there's also all these others. There's data to early diagnosis and precision medicine, transforming food production, next generation services, that's talking about like financial and insurance services, that kind of thing, prospering from the energy revolution, healthy aging, audience of the future, and quantum technology. So really wide range, multidisciplinary activities which are addressing these big 4 challenges. That's the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund. It's really exciting, guaranteed to produce some really interesting results, both for the academic side, but also hopefully increase productivity in the UK and address some really interesting challenges, put the UK at the forefront of the global economy in these particular areas. So that's the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund. Transforming construction in a nutshell, and Simon's going to go into more detail about what transforming construction really means. It's about a drastic overhaul to how we create buildings, boosting the productivity of the construction sector, and it's more affordable, safer, healthier, and more energy efficient buildings. All of those need to be thought about together. And it's a 170 million pot, which breaks down in a couple of different ways. At the moment, we've put 5 million into this Industrial Strategy Challenge Leaders Fund. So that's that 5 million over there. So that is projects that have just started. Those are really interesting academic projects that are addressing real problems with very viable routes into application. And I've got the titles of those which I can share just now. We've also, last year, did the increased productivity, performance and quality in the UK. That's a collaborative R&D fund for 12 to 13 million, which was done last year. And also we've got this Transforming Construction Network Plus, which is what we're here to do today. And that is Jackie's leading on that. It's part of the glue that's pulling all of this together and making it coordinated, cohesive, and so on. At least we hope so. So those research leadership funds that I talked about, there's 4 big projects there, 5 million shared among them, so they're major projects. Manufacturing integrated building components using 3D printed concrete, which is a fantastically interesting project at Loughborough. Applied offsite and onsite collective multi-robot autonomous building, so that's drones, swarm robotics, contributing to construction. Automating concrete construction, Acorn, at University of Bath, and also integrating conversational AI and augmented reality with BIM. So thinking about all these interesting ways, we've got AI, we've got ICT, we've got the Internet of Things involved in this, as well as cutting edge manufacturing technology. So you can see all the different disciplines that can contribute to construction. And if you want to look at in more detail about those, then go to that website there. That's EPSRC was the lead on that particular bit of the challenge. But then we can talk about the collaborative R&D, C-R&D winners. So they've just started in February this year, so just a few days ago, really. So there's, I think we had, is it 10 projects or thereabouts? 22, yeah, different number. Yep, 22 projects funded, which are, again, collaborative R&D projects, industry very clearly solving a problem with academic support, and that's been run by Innovate. And then we have the Network Plus, which is ESRC's contribution to this, and we're helping to manage this investment. So it's the Network Plus is about 2.5 million, of which 1 million-ish will be given out to these small projects, and we're here today to learn about what that means and what kind of things we're looking for in there. But really, as I said, the Network Plus, and the concept of a network in any area is about bringing the right people together, having the connections, ensuring that the policymakers are hearing the right things, and that the real problems are being solved, and that the right people are talking to the right people, essentially. And that's exactly what we need from a network. And it's a really valuable resource for the research councils as well, to have a network to discuss with. I can call up Jackie and ask her what's going on in transforming construction, and hopefully she'll have news on the ground. So, and also coming up this year, there will be more of these collaborative R&D calls coming out. So that's business-led R&D, 30 million in total will be coming out, and Simon can tell you more about that in a minute. So I'll hand over to Simon now, and you can talk about more detail.
Thanks, Adam. Thank you very much. Okay, my name is Simon Hart. I work for Innovate UK. I'm head of construction at Innovate UK, and I look after the Transforming Construction programme, the ISCF programme. What I want to do is just detail a few more points on what this programme is actually about. We heard from Adam as to how it fits in with the industrial strategy, the overall industrial strategy. We come under the clean growth area of the industrial strategy, so if you pick up the book, and if you're really willing to do that, have a good plough through the document, you'll find us in clean growth, along with the Energy Revolution programme, and also transforming food production is in there as well. And we actually do work quite closely with particularly the Energy Revolution team, because there are some crossovers between our two programmes. But why are we doing transforming construction? It's pretty fundamental. The UK construction sector is among one of the least productive industries in the UK, and that affects the economy because the government actually buys most of the output of the industry. It's around 40% as the single largest customer goes to government. And net result, if we have underperforming infrastructure, it results in a hit on the economy. We know, as an example, buildings are using far more energy than designed. The construction is contributing to UK greenhouse gas emissions. We have substantial impacts from traffic, the lack of capacity available in existing infrastructure, poor living conditions, and also disruption from, as an example, from flooding. This little chart here is that if you take 100% of a building project, around 43% of it actually ends up as something useful at the end of the day. So that's the productive output is around 43%. So 57% of that capital investment is just being wasted. The construction industry, we know it's around 9% of UK employment, but we do have a substantial skills shortage. The largest demographic in the industry is over 50, and one of the smallest demographics is the intake of young people into the industry, and declining. People are not choosing to go into the industry. So when you look at the construction sector and the impact it has on UK economy in general, the capital expenditure is around 89 billion, operational expenditure around 122 billion, but the service provision that is leveraged on top of that infrastructure is around 597 billion. So what we're looking at is, as a percentage, it's around 43% of the UK GDP is the construction and infrastructure sector and its outputs. So it's a really substantial sector, but it's one where the productivity is particularly poor. How many of you have seen these targets before? Good. This was the Industrial Strategy Construction 2025. It came out in, I believe it was around 2016. It could have even been earlier than that, led by the Construction Leadership Council. And it set out a series of targets to be achieved by 2025 for the industry around lowering costs, speeding up delivery, reducing emissions, and improving exports. And this industrial strategy underpinned our programme. What we are looking to do is to enable 3 strategic outcomes from our programme. That is using digital tools to deliver more certain outcomes, improving productivity by the use of manufacturing technology and by bringing in manufacturing-led quality, and improving the performance of buildings, optimising through-life performance, whole-life performance of smart assets. And we're doing that through the 3 enablers, which are procuring for better value, industry-led innovation, and skills for the future. And those go across all the three themes of digital, manufacturing, and performance. And when you place this into a policy environment, you can see how this aligns with all the other areas of government thinking. On the left-hand side of the diagram, we've got the construction sector deal delivered through Department for Business, Energy, Industrial Strategy. I was about to use their old name. And through the Construction Leadership Council. So the sector deal was really an agreement between, if the government does this, industry will do this. And there's further documentation behind that if you wish to go and delve into it, but it's one of the key points of our programme, is working with the construction sector deal. There's the transforming infrastructure. Transforming infrastructure is led by the Infrastructure and Projects Authority, and there's a couple of policy documents I'm going to show on the next page. So if you haven't read them, then I'd question why you're in this room. So, and then at the bottom there we have our Transforming Construction Challenge, and that's us. That's the 170 million. So that's the catalyst money going into the industry. The 5 departments down this side here, those are the 5 departments that announced presumption in favour of off-site manufacturing. And I mentioned those policy documents. Was listed in that centre one there, Transforming Infrastructure Performance. It's known as the TIP document, and it details the government's policy towards the presumption in favour of off-site for those 5 departments. This document here on the right-hand side, this is the Transport Infrastructure Efficiency Strategy. This is known as TIES. This is DFT's response to the TIP document. But it goes a little bit further. It's not just around off-site manufacturing, pre-manufactured value, but it also covers benchmarks and performance benchmarks as well. But both of these two, so the TIP document, the TIES document, are really key pieces of underlying policy for our programme. The one on the other side there, delivery platforms for government assets, that came out in 2017 as part of the Digital Built Britain programme, and that was actually the forerunner to this. That came out at the time when we were developing the Transforming Construction programme. It's worth picking up and reading it. I think it's available through Bryden Wood. It's on their website. But again, it's a good forerunner as to some of the principles behind where we are now. The £170 million ISCF programme is split into these parts. Left-hand side, we have 36 million going towards an active building centre. The active building centre is based in Swansea, taking a lot of the outputs of the work that was developed by the specific IKC, so effectively energy positive buildings. The Construction Innovation Hub, That is a group, an alliance between the MTC, BRE and the Centre for Digital Built Britain. And then the green area of 59 million, that is the funding from us. So that's the CR&D programs, that's this program, and it's the research calls as well. If we look at what the key inputs really are into this, so here is the Construction Innovation Hub. The things it's going to be working on are security, information management frameworks, standards and compliance, manufacturing and product family architectures. So product family architectures are trying to adopt platform-based approaches to the construction of assets. So if you're on the government side, we're trying to look at ways to standardize components across schools, across the justice estates, the health department, and across transport infrastructure and the other departments in the TIP policy. So that's looking to commonize components, commonize subsets of components, commonize interfaces. Because if you're the government, you don't want to be buying a bespoke piece of infrastructure every single time you go to market. That's currently the way the industry operates. So the government will be interacting with the Construction Innovation Hub, and so will industry. So the two coming together will help to deliver this set of outputs from the programme. Outputs they're looking to do is the physical output, that's the buildings themselves, but also the digital output. So the digital twin version of the asset, and that's critical for whole life performance, for asset management, and for repeatability through the life cycle. For the owner, we're looking at delivering high quality, high performing assets. For the user, so whether that's the child in the school or whether that's the patient in a hospital, it's a better experience, better quality, better safety. For the operator, it's using that data for more effective operation and maintenance strategies. So if we have the digital information of how we can manage a health portfolio, we can reduce the costs through that method. And for the industry, it's a safer way of working. So if we're shifting towards manufactured products, it becomes safer because we're doing things in factory-based environments. It's more predictable because we're repeating the same process again using design for manufacture and assembly techniques. And we hope it's more profitable because of this repeatability. We can drive out the uncertainty, drive out waste from the industry. The overall outcomes from the programme, economic outcomes, social outcomes, and environmental outcomes. Looking to bring an improved productivity of the output per worker, additional gross value added, to bring better skills and better skills rebalancing. Currently, the construction industry is very split. It's split regionally. It relies a lot of transient workforce within the industry. By shifting towards a manufacturing environment, the construction site does no longer have to be where the actual asset is going to be located. We can manufacture things in factory environments, in industrial areas, bringing in skilled workforce through the production line in much the same way as the automotive industry has done. So overall layout of the programme, I believe, are these slides going to be made available afterwards? I believe we can do that, so we should be able to get a copy of this. Some of you may have seen this at previous presentations, but this is really the way that the programme is going to operate. I mentioned the groups of organisations who are involved in the Construction Innovation Hub, MTC, part of the High Value Manufacturing Catapult. They do a lot of work within automotive and aerospace sectors and other high value manufacturing sectors. The BRE, well known to all of us, they're going to be looking at the performance and testing and validation, because it's no good as producing manufactured buildings if they're not compliant. There's no good producing manufacturing subsets of components if they can't perform through the testing functions that we expect of our assets. And Digital Built Britain, they are looking for the digital transformation across the life cycle. Those of you familiar with Gemini principles, coming from the National Infrastructure Commission, that is one of their main focuses of work now, is on the Gemini principles. The buildings as power stations, so this is the active building centre. For those of you, anyone's been to visit the facility? It's a fantastic facility, Swansea University. They've got this wonderful active classroom. It's a prototype of a school. that generates, in a year, it generates enough electricity to power a Nissan Leaf for 26,000 miles. It provides all its own heating, electricity, and apparently when there was a large power cut across the university estate, some of the labs were running extension leads into this building to power them because it was the only building on site that still had electricity. It's really there to reduce the reliance actually on the excuse me. It's there to reduce the reliance on the gas grid, very carbon intensive. The gas supply is very carbon intensive. We're looking to shift away from natural gas to decarbonise the economy. Electricity and electric heating is an ideal way of doing that, to provide electricity and heat. But at the moment, integrating all those systems together to make a product, and particularly a product that can be bought and implemented in schools, hospitals, homes, is a challenging area of research. So that's what they're going to be doing. The overall timeline for the programme, it's quite surprising actually. We're already over here. It doesn't feel like we've really got going yet, but there's a lot more to do. So the centres, if you see across the top line there, the centres of excellence. So that's the Construction Innovation Hub, Active Building Centre. Those are now operational. The first competitions, look at this is already gone. So if you weren't in touch with this, you've already missed all this. So the competitions, the Network Plus is operational now. The research projects, around 5 million research projects are operational. And the first round of the collaborative research and development programs, they are already operational. The next big chunk of money coming for industry-led research is this area here. It's around 30 million, not 39 million. There's around 30 million of funding available for collaborative research and demonstrators. And those demonstrator programs are the ones that particularly the government is looking to hold up as case studies for the industry. So typical things that would go into this and that would be fundable under this would be demonstrations of design for manufacture and assembly taken onto a real site or into a real program. Demonstrations of digital technology, particularly those from Gemini, again taken through and onto an active building program. And the same would apply to active building technology. So we're really looking to see there proper outputs coming out, things that people can go and tangibly go and look at, go and view, the sort of things that politicians like to be seen cutting the ribbon in front of them when we get into 2021. So that's the programme as it stands. So we're all going to be around later on if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask us. I'm going to hand over to Jackie. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Adam and Simon. A whistle-stop overview of a very complex landscape, actually. And I'd like to reassure everybody, if you didn't quite catch any of that or all of that, we are webcasting and recording the webcast, so you can re-watch those presentations at your leisure. I shall certainly be doing that. Thank you. That was an astonishing run-through of, as I say, a very complex landscape. So, of course, we will take questions on any aspect of that after the break as well. And I am very happy that we should take those questions. Now, my job right now to take you up to the break is to situate you and think specifically about the Network Plus. You've heard now the landscape of funding. You've heard a bit about policy. Let me then focus on the Network Plus and the call that we have launched. Collect your thoughts over the break and then fire questions to us after that. Mark, isn't it? Thank you. So I'm Jackie Glass. I'm the principal investigator for the Transforming Construction Network Plus. And I'm absolutely delighted some of our collaborators are here with us today, some not. But all of the information about our project can be found on the link, which I'm sure many of you have already seen today. And we can access it later, of course, for you. The really important messages that I need to get through with you in this part of the session is what the Network Plus is here to do and how you can participate in it. So I am going to focus a little bit in the first instance on the Network Plus in general, and then towards the end I'm going to really focus on the specifics of the call. Some of you may have downloaded the form, the application form, the call documentation, so I'm going to pick up on some things in that, and then gradually through the day we hope to clarify any queries that you have, anything that you're not sure about. But if we can't address things during the day today, we will absolutely follow up with you on an individual basis. Okay? Right, so let me just organise my notes here. I have various things which I need to go through with you. So, you've already heard that this is an investment, if you like. We are a small fraction of the Transforming Construction Challenge. And I'm delighted that we are described as the glue, maybe the oil for the wheels of these enormous investments, perhaps. But we're an important part, because the Network Plus responds to these investments. It responds to the challenges that Adam and Simon have laid out for you. And this is your entry point, principally as academics, with your industry partners as well. If you don't know what a Network Plus is, networks within the Research Council's environment are groups of people, groups of academics, groups of industrial partners tackling a specific issue. A Network Plus is where we have resource. We have a hub and we have a resource available to fund activities. So our Network Plus is a model that's been used previously by the research councils, but we are the Network Plus for the Transforming Construction Challenge. And within that, we have a number of aspects that we will be tackling, and I'm going to explain those in a little bit more detail. I'm also going to give you some strong indications, both now and later on today, about how you might go about forming a project, how you might respond to these major challenges that we've been given within the industrial strategy. And I don't want you to be, put off or, to find them too challenging to address. We have an opportunity here. We have an opportunity to challenge, to disrupt, to get under the skin of the construction industry and prompt change for the better. So as we've heard already, this is the broad landscape in which we sit. It's our responsibility in the Network Plus to liaise with those big investments and those centres, to make sure that we have good connections with them, and arguably good connections for yourselves as well, to make sure that you are able to communicate with them and access them. You can see very clearly then that these investments are tackling many issues across the whole life cycle of buildings. This is a very broad intellectual space, everybody. It's very broad. I was trying to think of somebody whose discipline wouldn't be relevant here, and I really struggled, because this is absolutely a multidisciplinary challenge that we have ahead of us. So the Network Plus started in November 2018. We will run for 2 years, and we will be allocating up to £1 million into small projects. Now they're called small because actually in the scale of some of the numbers we've already seen today, they will seem a bit small, but to be honest with you, sometimes 10K can be extremely meaningful. Depends what you want to do. And I'm going to explain that in a little bit more detail. So we will be also running engagement events, and we have our own research program which will run alongside all of the small projects as well. And what I'd just like to do now is just introduce a few of the people who you may come across today and who will be working on the Network Plus. Myself, and then in clockwise around the centre there, Andy Davis at UCL, Jennifer White is here from Imperial College London, Jan Godsall from Warwick Manufacturing Group, who couldn't be here today, and Paul Roosevelt, who's also not here today, from UCL. But we have a team around us now also. We have Mireille from Warwick Manufacturing Group. Doreen and Lisa from UCL are here and are sitting at the back. You will have seen them earlier. Kel is here from UCL as well. He is also at the back, our research fellow. Luigi from Imperial is here towards the front. And Ben Kidd is also here from Imperial College London as well. So we have a raft of people within our institutions who are dedicated to delivering this programme. And it is, as they say, a packed programme. We're bringing our network of collaborators into this, but we are bringing even more people, including yourselves and the 200 people at least who are watching online right now. Please keep an eye open for our events. We will be running various events through that 2-year programme because we want to create and sustain a community of academic and like-minded practitioners to take work forward. This is not a one-hit thing. You know, we want to catalyse activity and new strands of work. So what I want to focus on for a moment, though, just now, before I go into the call details, is a little bit about our, I suppose you might call our ethos, our modus operandi. It was absolutely clear from the start of when we set up the Network Plus that we needed to provoke the community into doing things differently. This is not an intellectual space where you can put a recycled grant proposal in and expect us to fall for it, because we're not going to, okay? Don't do it. You need to think differently. You need to collaborate with different people, perhaps. Challenge the fundamentals of our industry. This is your chance. We haven't had a chance like this for a long time. So please make use of the chance. Let me just give you a couple of quotes here. Now, this is all in our guidance, I have to say. Applicants, and I'm going to go into the call detail in a second, applicants must focus on how their research will contribute to the Transforming Construction Challenge, which has just been laid out for us, as an industry movement, an idea and a change programme. Okay? I'm encouraging you to think big. New ideas around new business models, ideas for adaptations and disruption might tackle the notion that there is a tipping point that industry needs to reach to enable it to transform. All of this is in the call document. So these are the sorts of agendas that we're talking about. Today I'm introducing to you round 1 of our funding. There will be a second round, which will launch in September of this year. This round is quite broad in its remit. Right now, we are keeping a very open mind about how broad or otherwise or thematic our second round will be. We don't know that yet. But these are the key dates that you would need to work to. These are fixed. It's very important that we achieve 2 rounds of funding within the short 2 years that we have available to us. We want to do the best that we possibly can. And so we have a timeline here laid out for you. There will be interactions with the broader Network Plus community. And these are all in the call document. We spent a lot of time collaborating with UKRI and the TCC, the folks in the Transforming Construction Challenge, and ESRC Research and the Research Council who are helping us. We want to make sure that the academic community more broadly has access to this challenge, okay? This is supposed to be an academic access point. So what you will see in the call document is that we are showing these projects as academic-led projects, okay? We are, however, inviting people to bring their industry partners along with them, should they wish to. We're looking for additionality here. It isn't necessary for you to have additional partners. They're there should you need them. They're there if you feel it's appropriate for impact. But do not feel you have to rush out today and get a clutch of letters of support to participate in this programme. That's not necessarily the way to go. If you do apply, whether you're successful or not, you will get feedback. And anyone who applies in the first round who is not successful is welcome to have another go in our round 2. Again, in our guidance document, you'll see that there's a commitment that you'd need to make to the Network Plus. You know, this is public funding. It's so important that you're prepared to share as you go along and learn from others as well. We talked about the research leaders who have recently been funded. They are part of our programme, and we will be bringing them in to talk about their projects as they go along as well. I'm actually part of one of those investigative teams, so the link is very straightforward for us. And for those of you who are, I beg your pardon, I just need to go back to that one briefly. For those of you who are familiar with Research Council's funding, you know, some of these criteria that you've seen in the call document will be very familiar. There are no real surprises here in how your projects, your applications would be judged. We've got 5 criteria here, and each of them has 3 key points below it, and reviewers will be asked to score against those. You can apply for up to £100,000, 80% FEC, as I'll explain in a moment. The amount you apply for will be judged in terms of its appropriateness and proportionality in only selected categories. And that's all set out in the call document for you on page 7. We want to try and make this as straightforward as possible. If you've participated in Research Council funding before, some of this will look very familiar. We are going to send everything out to peer review. If you apply from the University of, let's say, Edinburgh, clearly those peer reviews would not be done by somebody from the University of Edinburgh. You get the gist of things. We'd be looking for 3 reviews per project, and what's really important for us is the feedback that people get. So the other thing that I've missed out on this slide, because we're still confirming the process, is the post-award process. We're not just going to give you the money and kind of let you get on with it. Actually, we've got a support programme that we're organising to help you achieve impact. So that's not on the slide yet, but it will be very soon. We really hope to allocate this 1 million reasonably equally across the calls. We'd like to maybe get as much as we can spent, you know, maybe a little 60% first in the first tranche, but this absolutely depends on quality. If we haven't got quality, we are not forced to spend in the first round. We are absolutely confident, though, based on the amount of applications that other programmes have received in the last year, we're confident there's going to be a lot of applications for this programme. Quality is everything, though. If the reviewers and our strategy board, and I'll talk about them in just a moment, if they're not happy with the quality, we would rather give people feedback and ask them to come back again. It's super important. We've got a very limited time, so we have to invest very wisely indeed. I just wanted to mention then our strategy board very briefly, because you might think, oh well, it's UCL, it's Imperial College London, it's Warwick Manufacturing Group, they're going to make all the decisions. We're not. We're going out to a pool of reviewers, and our strategy board includes representation from the Transforming Construction Challenge, Construction Leadership Council, Construction Industry Council, the Construction Products Association, the Federation of Master Builders, Constructing Excellence, Construction Scotland, hello to everybody in Scotland watching today, Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, the High Value Manufacturing Catapult. So the industry leadership has got direct oversight of what we're doing. So you can be reassured about that. I'm very happy to talk about funding mechanism, etc., in a bit more detail, perhaps, Mark, in the Q&A session, because I suspect people will have queries around that. So as I said before, that this really is an opportunity today to try to make sure that you're clear about what we're looking for, so you can go away, work with colleagues, convey our messages, and also bring others into your projects as well. We will collect questions over the break. I think that's the plan, isn't it? Yep. Lovely. Mark, can I hand over to you then? Sure thing. Thank you.
So thank you everyone for your patience in sticking with us over the last hour. I appreciate that's an awful lot of information to take on board if you're new or fresh to the Transforming Construction Challenge. As Jackie said, the slides with the presenter's permission will be available, and our team will be sending those out afterwards. Certainly if you have questions in the meantime, of course, you can always respond to us. In terms of what happens next, we're now going to have a generous break, so we're not back until 11:45. That'll give those who are joining us online the opportunity to post questions through the WebEx portal, and I'll collate those to raise questions of the panel when we reconvene after the break. You'll also have the opportunity, as I said earlier, if you wish to remain anonymous or not play your hand, you can ask questions by the use of post-it notes. We'll be up in the networking room where we were this morning for refreshments. You can put those on there. Again, I'll collect those. Or, of course, we'll have microphones here in the room so you can raise your questions in an open forum to the panel when we reconvene after the break. So it only leaves me to now say thank you very much. You can now get up and move around again, get the blood circulating, reload with caffeine. But just before we go, if we could just give a round of applause, please, to our presenters and thank them. And I look forward to seeing you again then back here promptly for 11:45. Thank you. Right, we're all connected and live. Okay, well that's encouraging to see so many of you have returned after the break, and not too many. Can't see too many faces that have disappeared. So thank you very much for coming back. So we're now going to move into a session of questions and answers. We've been inviting questions upstairs, and also we've been inviting questions online. So periodically, I might have to just zip over to my laptop and just check to see if we have any more questions that have come in. Nita is at the back there. She has a microphone. Because we are doing this online, if you could just wait until the microphone comes to you before asking a question, if you would be so kind to start with your name and the organisation or body that you represent. So our panellists then are returning are Professor Jacqueline Glass from UCL, who's the principal investigator for the Network Plus call, Simon Hart from Innovate UK, and Adam Luqmani from ESRC, who are the representing the funding body, and I'll just chair this session for you. Okay, I think if Anita's ready, so she's just having a table assembled for her. So if Anita's now ready, I think we'll start with some questions from the room then. First of all, we'll give you first opportunity to ask your questions. So do we have any questions from the floor? Anybody? Julie down at the front then.
Julie Lewis-Thompson, University of Exeter. Thank you very much for today. It's been very informative. My question is, I have a number of academics at Exeter who are keen in putting forward suggestions, applications for this call, all with different ideas. What's your view on taking multiple applications from one institution on that basis?
Okay, so question, is that coming through all right? Yes?
Yeah, that's coming through.
Marvellous.
Yeah, I can hear you.
My hearing's clearly not as good as it should be. I beg your pardon. There is no cap in terms of the number of applications that we will deal with, and there is no cap in terms of applications from a particular institution. However, what I would suggest in response is that your colleagues may wish to coordinate amongst themselves, because obviously it could put a lot of pressure on your own research infrastructure if they all choose to pursue this. So that would be a piece of friendly advice, obviously. We've received a number of queries already from various institutions and people who are saying, am I working in the right area? Am I doing something which might be relevant? Now, of course, clearly today we can speak with people on a one-to-one basis, but in your case, you will be effectively reporting back and liaising with your colleagues. My advice in that respect is to please feed back to them, ask them to rewatch this webcast today, and then to contact us with a few words or a few lines. And we've already received quite a few inquiries like this. Typically, we can tell people reasonably quickly if they're within scope or not, or we can arrange to have a phone call with them and have a bit more of a conversation. So liaison is the way forward. We are very happy to deal with queries, suggestions, etc. Not a problem at all.
So as a follow-on to that, then addressing one of the questions from online, then who is the best point of contact then for the eligibility questions, that sort of online discussion? What's the process? If you could talk through that, Jacqueline.
Certainly. I appreciate many of you will have already seen the call documentation, but actually on the front of the call and on the application form, there is an email inbox which starts with inquiries.tcnetworkplus. That mailbox is monitored by several people, so my advice to people is to submit a query to that mailbox first. If for any reason we aren't able to answer it, we will of course liaise with colleagues such as Adam, Simon or others who are able to help with that query.
Great, thank you. We've got a series of scope questions which are probably quick fire answers. So if we can go into the quick fire answers round for a brief second then, just while we're talking about eligibility, and then that will tick those off. Are district heating models in scope and district heating networks in scope?
Is that for this call or more broadly?
It isn't specific as whether it's for this call or more broadly, so that may be a question perhaps for Simon to start with, and to see whether that's something you want to pick up or comment on as well, Jacqueline.
I would say no. It depends how exactly it is detailed, though. If this is to do with whole life performance of buildings, there could be some eligibility.
Yeah.
But if it's purely district heating, I would say no.
It sounds like it's more one for the Prospering from Energy Revolution wave programme. As you say, it's the interface possibly between buildings and that network that could be within scope, but yeah, it sounds like it's more one for there.
I'll say just something very briefly on that. Our focus is buildings, but we are not considering them in absolute isolation. Clearly, buildings are built assets. They sit within an infrastructure, they sit within a broader system. And as you've seen, the landscape of the Transforming Construction Challenge does not think of buildings in complete isolation. It does not think of the construction process in isolation. Where we receive queries which relate to energy specifically, obviously we would also liaise potentially with the Active Building Centre, because they have a major programme of work. Which is just starting off as well.
Great, thank you. So another one then, still in the quickfire round. Are projects which make a greater use of prefabricated manufacturing technologies and approaches in scope? And it doesn't say whether it's for this call or for the overall programme. So the use of prefab.
Yes.
Right, excellent. Where was the other one? The other one was, are, for this particular call, for the Network Plus call now, are demonstrators within scope? Demonstrators were mentioned as being in scope for the CR&D call, round 2. Would a demonstrator-led project be in scope?
With that breadth of description, I would say it's rather hard to answer. I would reiterate that we are looking for 9-month maximum projects, and we have a cap on the amount people can request. However, if the question comes from somebody who wants to liaise with a demonstrator project, that might be in scope. So I think I would need a bit more detail on that one to give a comprehensive answer.
Right, okay. And then the final one in the quickfire round then will be, what does business models cover? That may not be a quickfire answer though, that's a quickfire question.
If you have a look at, as an example, the work of Project 13, when we talk business models, we're talking about the business structures of the industry to enable greater use of off-site manufacturing and digital technologies. So we are about improving productivity in the industry, and there are a large number of business practices in the industry which do not contribute to improvements in productivity. So anything, I think, on the business side that could be beneficial to improving the industry could be considered, but I would advise looking at things like Project 13 and some of the work of the Construction Leadership Council in this area before commenting further on that.
Okay.
So I shall have the luxury of an academic answer to that. Don't worry, it won't take an hour. We use the term business models as a little bit of a catch-all phrase, actually, and it could mean how you run your business. It could mean how you run your relationships with other businesses. It could mean how you run your supply chain. It could mean how you run your transactions. It could mean how you collaborate. The important thing here for me is new business models is about really challenging the way we do things in construction. If you are going to look at disruptive business models and their implications, you're probably in the right space.
Right, let's give Anita some exercise then. I think, gentlemen, did you have a follow-on call for? Oh, sorry, there's a gentleman up there with a microphone. I'll come straight back to you though.
Hi. Sorry, I've got a couple of quick questions and an open invitation, really. My name's Oliver Jones from Ryder Architecture. We've got offices in London, Glasgow, Liverpool, Newcastle, Hong Kong, Vancouver and Amsterdam. We're currently engaged in a lot of research-rich design practice and seeking academic partners in a number of different areas around integration of sensor technology, healthy buildings, healthy aging within buildings, and energy infrastructure and the use of digital technologies to facilitate that on a community scale. We work in a lot of healthcare projects and educational large campus projects where there's a ton of research going on, and I just really wanted to ask is how many bids can a business support or lead, because we have quite a few, and also is there any mechanism to use this network to find those academic partners? I know that's the point, but I just wanted to throw it out there for a response.
Yeah, okay. We'll certainly talk about networking because that's a number of questions online as well about how do you network, how do you gain access to the network. So I'll let Jackie specifically respond to that, and I'll add to that as well. But yeah, who wants to pick up the question on scope and bids? And yeah.
Oliver, thank you for the question. I would say you were going to have a very busy lunchtime because there's a lot of academics in the room. The first thing to say is that under the Network Plus call, businesses are not eligible to lead on bids. So we are only enabled to actually contract directly with other universities. So you would need to partner with a suitable academic body or one who can apply for UKRI funding. Okay, and the scope of the topics that you've talked about have generally, I would say, they feel like they would be relevant. So one of the things that we can do within the Network Plus, again, if you contact us, we would be happy without prejudice to help you connect with people. We have a mailing list, which people are opting into to keep in touch with us. And certainly networking in events is really important to us to make sure that we are connecting people up. So I would say you're in the right space, but you can't lead anything under this particular call.
How many can we be on?
I would suggest that would be a matter for your capacity. I would be personally advising you to target things where you feel you can give the most additionality to a particular project. Happy to advise further. Did you want to mention about the other calls?
Well, I was just going to say on how many you can contribute to. Yeah. I was going to say it's often the case that a company is really keen to get involved in a call and will say, oh yeah, I'll give you money, I'll give you money, and then all of those ones get funded, and suddenly you get the letters back and say, oh now we have to commit all the money that we funded, all of our ships have come home. So you've got to be careful not to overcommit in case they all end up being successful. And the other thing to think about is just being critical and making sure that you're only putting, exactly like Jacqueline said, where putting your resource and your effort where you think you can add the most value.
It might well also, if you're looking for business funding, then waiting for the Innovate UK calls coming out later this year, which are business led.
So just to wrap around that and to answer the question, there's a couple of questions online about how do industry engage with academics. Obviously, that is a prime function of our role within the knowledge transfer network. We are the UK's innovation network and network of networks. It's not just, of course, around construction. It's around a whole host of other sectors. And as Jackie said in her presentation, this whole program is very much around bringing in other sectors, so we can certainly help you find other academic partners, other industrial partners that you would want to work with as well, not just directly in relation to this call, but other calls. And of course, as the announcements come up, we will be, of course, promoting those and echoing those through our newsletters. So prime thing to do will be to sign up to our newsletters, which are tailored to your business. They're not just a blanket one, so we're not going to fill your inbox with newsletters. You tell us what things you're interested in, what technologies, what approaches, and we send you a tailored one which covers not only the work of Innovate UK, but also the other 5,000 funds and programs which we access within the KTN outside of the work that's done by UKRI and Innovate UK. Okay, this gentleman at the back, and then I was going to come to you then next.
Hello, Tom Reynolds, University of Edinburgh. Just noting that you've said that early career researchers shouldn't be principal investigators. I just wondered if you could define an early career researcher in this.
So, fair question. It's a very broad range, and it's kind of I think it may be a research council term. Essentially, it's how your peers see you. But more specifically in this call, we're talking about postdoctoral researchers, so people who are post-PhD, and also kind of early career academics. But in their case, they can actually be leaders because if they're lecturers, but it's the postdocs that can't be leaders.
Okay, so it's
but we want it. I mean, if in doubt, have an established PI in there as the lead, and then have the early career person on as the kind of person who does the main bulk of the work.
So, Tom, just in a little bit more detail, if anybody has any particular inquiries about how they would be seen within this call, again, they can email us and we would liaise with them, obviously. We understand there are a lot of people on different sorts of contracts out there. This is partly to do with enabling somebody to participate in this, but not having to take overall responsibility for the delivery of the programme. So, for example, if you look at the Centre for Digital Built Britain recently had a similar call for early career researchers, and they collaborated with senior academics or colleagues to help them with those proposals. And so you have a very low percentage or 0% PI there to support and mentor the early career individual as well. There is absolutely a positive to this. But in that case, perhaps the early career researcher or the new academic would shape the bid and then have that person to liaise with in the development of it as well. So I see this as a positive, like a mentoring role also. But it is also, the pressure that people will be under necessarily in new roles, new academic roles, for example, and researcher roles. If you are not accustomed with your in-house systems of preparing research bids, etc., it's a lot to get used to in a short amount of time. So enabling you to work with other academics in your proposal development should be enabling earlier career researchers and new academics to actually get their proposal in as well.
Thank you.
Okay, it's this gentleman here next. If you don't mind just waiting for the microphone to work its way around to you, thank you.
Hi, my name is Raj Chola. I represent the Process Innovation Forum, which is an industry-specific incubator. The question over here is with reference to scope. Would legal systemic issues and procurement systemic issues be part of this scope, i.e. reforming them or realigning them? And would also regulatory compliance in industry be part of this scope?
I'd say yes, providing it's a substantial change to current business as usual. There, as an example, there is a current significant challenge with the Treasury Green Book business case for getting infrastructure projects justified, where at the end of the day it always comes down to lowest cost option, and lowest cost option tends to favour traditional construction at present. Part of the options analysis needs to be better consideration of whole life value, particularly the operation and maintenance of assets, which is something that doesn't happen at the moment under the current model. So yes, I would say those would be, I would consider them to be in scope. Jacqueline, got a comment?
Yeah, sure. So if you're framing that as a problem, yes, and your project is responding to those as a problem, then I think you will be in scope. So specifically in the call document, we do talk about procurement, productivity and performance. Okay, so you've mentioned procurement there. That is something that we would expect some people to be discussing in their proposals. But what I would also suggest is that, you know, these are research projects, so they are led by academics for a reason. This is not a business-led call. Okay, so they are different necessarily in terms of the way the criteria are set out, etc. So the way these are judged would not be the same as, for example, the collaborative R&D calls. So there are distinct differences in how these projects will be judged. Okay.
Thanks, understand that.
Do you have any more questions from the floor? Okay, so the one at the back, and then you. I'll come back to you.
Hello. Already?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, great. So my name's Haijiang Li. I'm from Cardiff University. I'm professor doing BEAM for smart engineering. So given the duration for the project, it's 9 months maximum. I was wondering, it is more asking for scoping project, test the innovative idea, instead of, if that's it, yes then.
Let me explain. So in a 9-month project, you need to be pitching something which you can definitely deliver. Clearly, you are not going to be able to achieve in 9 months what you might achieve in a 3-year responsive mode proposal. Okay? However, you could apply to this funding with a view to mobilising for a bigger proposal. So if you you said scoping study, yes. Secondment, yes. Focus group, yes. Delphi exercise, yes. Workshop, yes. Small research program of interviews, yes. Many options. Okay, so we're not restricting you in terms of your, for example, your data collection method, etc. But we are looking for good quality outcomes given the short amount of time available. But do think of them as catalysts. Yes, do think about the idea that this is an opportunity to mobilise your team or in a new area of inquiry.
That's great. That's a very great example. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, it was this lady at the front, Anita, please.
Hello, I'm Helen Mulligan from Cambridge Architectural Research. We have a number of projects where we're working with networks and with clients in other countries. For example, we're involved in a Marie Curie ETN. We are working in projects in the Far East and so forth. I'm wondering whether any element of international collaboration will be within scope.
Okay, so when we set out the call document, we're responding to UK policy, okay? So our key focus here is UK policy and UK industry. If you feel that there is expertise from other countries that you wish to bring to your project, then my advice is that they would contact us early on, because we would possibly need to liaise with ESRC about this. is that, Adam, is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, something we have in things like in EPSRC responsive mode, for instance, you can have a visiting researcher on a project. So it's based at a UK university, but then you pay for the travel and subsistence for an international individual to come over and bringing their ideas to transfer into the project. So that might be a model that you want to follow, something along those lines. But really, it's about we need to fund a UK institution and look at addressing productivity in the British construction sector, but know-how can come from anywhere. Yeah.
Anything else to add there? Was it that chap there? Yeah. We'll just move the microphone to that chap there, and then we'll come back to you again if we may.
Hello, Duncan Wilson also from UCL Bartlett, Prof of Connected Environment. So I'll chat to you afterwards, Oliver. That's right. Quick question on the I guess back on the catalysing and mobilising. I think I noticed on one of the slides it was saying that the applicants have to be a named researcher. Could you just explain what that means, and does that mean that we can't bring in extra staff?
So the issue here is about the appointment process. So what we are asking people is to name who is going to work on your project, because we need you to start straight away. They're 9-month projects and we can't delay things. We have an absolute fixed end date on this whole programme. So what we can't really support is people saying, well, I will recruit a researcher to work on this, but I don't know who they are yet. So I've got to go through the entire university recruitment process to get my person on board. That's going to delay you by N months, and that's if they're a UK national, okay? So this is about reducing our risk and your risk that you don't deliver in the time available. It also enables us to better judge the team that you've assembled, hence named researcher, named applicants, etc. Yes?
Okay, the chap from the process innovation.
Just answer that question.
Has it? Oh, right, okay. Oh dear. Okay, have we got any more from the floor? If not, I've got a couple more from online. So anyone else who wants to jump in? No? Okay, so the last two questions I have then from online, I will check and just make sure there's no more. So if you do have any more questions online, please do put those through. These are somewhat linked, possibly more for Simon and Adam to comment on. What are the opportunities for follow-on funding to take forward any ideas or any catalyse on any great ideas that have that come about through this process?
So there will be the collaborative R&D and demonstration funding, which will launch August, September this year, to fund in the following year, the following financial year. If the project is in scope for those calls, then yes, there is follow-on funding within this programme. Now, the scope for those calls is not yet defined, and the scope will depend on, to a large extent, how the industry responds to these calls and how the programmes in the first round come about. So yeah, it's a difficult one to answer. It really depends on the specifics as we get forward, but bear in mind there is other funding available through other programmes.
Yeah. It's worth mentioning that if you are successful in round one, you can also still apply for round two. But also, this is an excellent opportunity to prove a concept that you could then turn into a standard proposal for, let's say, EPSRC or even ESRC, depending on the domain that you're working in. And you know, this kind of opportunity is really great grounds to build up the evidence that you need to submit a proposal, to prove the team, and to demonstrate that, you know, and to start those relationships with partners as well. So this is a really great starting point for you know, a more substantial grant, and certainly there are open mechanisms at the moment that you can apply through, like the engineering area in EPSRC, for instance.
Simon, specifically on the CR&D call, there was a specific question around, you mentioned about, and Adam mentioned about, if you are successful in round one of N+, you can come back and come in for round two. For the CR&D round two call, can you just comment about the people who would be eligible? Is it open to anybody, or do you have to have taken part in round one or in the Network Plus call?
It's open to anybody, business-led, and application obviously dependent on the details of the scope that are set out for that competition. We're looking to launch that, I mentioned, in the summer. It'll be open for around 3 months, but programs won't start until the following financial year. Okay. That's the keys with those. Okay.
And as former colleagues, I'm going to be unfair to you now and ask you a question that possibly you're not ready to answer, or I'll test you for your insights anyway. You mentioned earlier about the tip and ties programs. With your insight and the work that I know you've been doing over the last couple of years, working with those organisations, have you got anything to add about follow-on funding from them, or the potential for funding? What's in their mindset? What are they thinking about?
So the tip and ties are strategies and policies. The only funding made available was, certainly for R&D, was through us. Now, each of the 5 departments in the tip strategy have capital build programs. If they see value in R&D that can affect those programs, it's likely that they may be running SBRI competitions to help with some of that. If you have a look at the Innovate UK website at the moment, there is a Highways England SBRI call that's gone out. That, although it wasn't delivered through us, it is linked to some of the strategic direction that the transport industry is heading in.
Okay, thank you. That's it for questions online. I don't know if there's anything else you want to make, any more particular statements at this time, or if there are any more questions from the floor, please feel free to add in. But if not, I'll pass over to you then, Jacqueline.
Yes, because this is going out online and the webcast will finish around lunchtime, there was one particular definition an understanding that I wanted to read out to you just now, which we in the room can revisit after lunch, but I wanted it to be available for those online. We use the word interdisciplinarity in the call, and we've had a lot of discussion within our own team and with others about what we mean by this in relation to this call. So what I'd just like to do is try and clarify that for you. So our call is seeking projects which draw on 2 or more disciplines to address the challenges involved in transforming construction through the integration and cross-application of digital, energy and manufacturing technologies and methods. Hence, projects could involve disciplines such as engineering, built environment, computing sciences, but they might equally include economics, social sciences and others. Collaborations both within and between universities are equally encouraged, and a single discipline investigator or team could propose a project which applies a new lens to the transforming construction challenge, and in so doing accounts for and addresses other disciplines. So I just wanted to make that clear for everybody online, that is something that we wanted to clarify.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, that neatly covers off the bit that I was going to finish with. So that's great. Thank you, Jacqueline. That's marvellous. Yeah, please do. Yes.
Just to kind of underline the point that this is a really great opportunity for high risk and very radical proposals. So we want something that's really pushing the boundaries. And it's a point I made at the advisory board earlier, that we should be looking for things that maybe wouldn't necessarily be easily submitted via standard mode routes, because it might be, something that would be very polarizing or something like that, something very high risk, very exciting stuff. And do take to heart that multidisciplinary approach. Think about the unusual suspects that might be brought in to help bring a different approach to construction, because I think we do need to bring the outside in here. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So if there's no further questions from the floor, then in that case, I'll just take the opportunity again just to thank our panelists for answering those questions. So thank you very much. We now move to an extended period then of lunch and the opportunity for you to join us for lunch and to have the opportunity to network with each other and also with the delivery team behind this call. We're then going to reconvene, as it says there, at 1:45. At that point then, we'll be inviting Professor Jennifer White from Imperial College to join Jacqueline at the front here to discuss in an open session with you what would make a good application, what sort of things are they expecting to see, where could projects be going. And then we'll then move to a period where we'll then be available to answer further questions and have more one-to-one sessions with you if you so wish, just in an informal setting. You can grab any one of us, we'll be in here. So now it's a case of moving upstairs then where lunch will be served shortly because we are finishing about 15 minutes early. But we can go up there, retire. Say, toilets, and if you need them, are downstairs. If you haven't found them already, down by the cloakroom. And then, as I say, lunch will be served upstairs in the, God, what do we call it, the Dorchester room? The library place thing at the top of the stairs. Anyway, you'll find it, I'm sure. You'll follow your noses. So, see you back here for 1:45. Thank you very much.